I wanted to share with you about how mentors sometimes they are sharing their wisdom directly, and sometimes they may open doors to someone else who has the wisdom you're looking for. As the author of The Art of Mentoring, I spent the most amount of time in my life thinking about this. What is mentoring? It is a trusted human connection. It is human to human transfer of wisdom. Mentoring is not watching an online video. Mentoring is not reading a book. Now you can experience the author and the author's soul and the author's wisdom by reading a book, and definitely have so-called adopted mentors. That is perfectly fine, because I have, for example, one of my spiritual mentors, inspiring mentors, Adi Shankara from several hundred years ago, who I feel that he is giving me some aspects of life and oneness and deep human thinking based on his writings and compositions. There are mentors that I learned from that I never had a chance to meet. Robin Sharma, for example, his book, Who Will Cry When You Die, was a very instrumental book for me. Also, A Leader Who Had No Title, also a very important book. Now, I've never met Robin, but I feel I'm able to learn. So learning from a wise person is perfectly fine, but that's not really mentoring, okay? But mentoring is a human conversation. So I was recently reflecting, I gave a talk on one of the very important pieces of Indian epic, the longest book ever written, with more than 150,000 verses, if I recollect. It's called Mahabharata. It is written by sage Vedavyasa, and it is an elongated story of an entire multiple generations of story that happens in kingdoms and children of two brothers, and their families, the Kauravas and the Pandavas and so on. But one of the very important pieces of the Mahabharata is called Bhagavad Gita, which has been translated into every language today, and so many Eastern and Western scholars have studied it and written about it. Even the world's popular book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, even he sort of talks about how his inspiration came from Bhagavad Gita. So I wanted to touch upon two incidents in the particular, before the Bhagavad Gita and after the Bhagavad Gita, or after the war. So the scenario is this. These are children of two brothers, and there is some disagreement about who should be the king, and you can read all about it online. But then now they have decided to settle the matter by having a war, by having a real war. So they are on the battlefield, and one of the smartest and most qualified warriors, Arjuna, feels a sense of heaviness in his heart, because the people who he is about to fight with are really his first cousins. So he is overcome with a sense of emotion and feels very weak. He talks about how his bow that he normally holds with such strength and confidence is now almost falling off from his hands, with this feeling that he is going to be fighting with his own people. Now this can happen to a lot of us, and the way I describe that is, all of us can get sometimes completely stunned, like deer in front of headlights, right? We just don't know what to do. We can get stuck, whether you're an entrepreneur, you're building a company, or whether you're head of a company trying to go through an M&A, or you're trying to solve a complex customer problem. We might get completely stuck in sometimes, not able to think. It happens because of that mental confusion. Nothing to do with your skills. It's not the lack of skills. It's not the lack of your power, but just at the moment in time, multiple conflicting thoughts and ideas and emotions from the past can make you sort of motionless and speechless. That's what happened to Arjuna. And his charioteer was Lord Krishna. And Krishna could have easily said, okay, Arjuna, if you don't want to fight, it's okay. But he saw it as an opportunity to clarify. And he never asked Arjuna, why don't you fight now? And in the evening or after the war is over, I'll explain all the reasons. Because then what happens is the decision to engage in that activity is not the mentees or the Arjunas. Somebody told him to do it, he will do it, but he may not be fully aligned, fully bought in, as they say in the West, right? So when as a mentor-mentee, when they're talking, never tell mentee, do this. Let the mentee own the activity so that they take full responsibility, they're inspired, and use all of their resources and energy and time and passion and skills to engage in the activity and accomplish the final result. So in that situation, Lord Krishna decides to have a conversation that goes on for 770 different verses. These are 4-line verses in Sanskritam. Again, just because Bhagavad Gita is in Sanskrit does not mean it is tied to a specific religion. Let us remove that miscomprehension from our minds. It was a conversation. They were talking in a language. If two people speak in Swahili or Sinhalese or any language, Arabic, Chinese, Japanese, it doesn't matter. It is the language that they speak and they're having a conversation. Our goal, if somebody says that conversation is great, let us get it dubbed. Let us get it translated and transcribed and find out, is there a wisdom that we can learn from that? Don't get sidetracked by the language in which they are talking. If you don't understand it, try to understand it. But don't try to connect that to a specific religion, a specific way of thinking. Then you're completely missing the wisdom in that conversation. So this was a conversation that went on for 770. So it's like in a conversation, you say something, the mentor says something, and the mentee says something. That's what happened. So in that moment, Krishna gave him the wisdom based on what he heard, what he experienced, why it's important to punish people if they're not behaving, because such bad practices can be bad to society. And he explains in a very expanded way of how to make decisions when you are stuck with a situation like this. What goes into a decision-making process? What criteria should you pay attention to? What criteria should you not pay attention to? What are those things that you should not get unnecessarily distracted by because you are in the position of a leader? What does a leader do? Just like a mirror can become hazy because there is dust on it, a leader can get very confused if there is this veil of confusion, he says. Very, very important. He explains how a leader should stand firm and not like a lamp in a wind. He explains how society operates when there are good people, when there are bad people. And if the good people don't step up and take action, the bad can get amplified and cause a lot of suffering in the world. And he talks about leadership. He talks about what a good conversation is. How to speak in a way that other people are inspired to listen to you and to act on your words. So the entire conversation is what I call a decision-making manual, which Lord Krishna has given at that time in the role of a mentor. Now, Arjuna asks a lot of questions, gets all his confusing thoughts clarified. He is now enlightened. He knows. It's almost like any of us reading how to make the perfect pitch, how to be a leader, how to speak eloquently, how to inspire people, how to have empathy. Imagine you read all those books and you come out and say, I really understand now. I'm not as confused as I was before. I have a lot more clarity now. That is what Mentor Krishna gave to Arjuna a sense of clarity, the clarity of thought. Because leaders, when you have clarity of thought, your action will be clear, your outcomes will be clear, and your people also will see you as a leader because you are clear in what you are thinking, what you are doing, and what you are ordering them to do. Now, the war takes place. Good wins over bad. At the end of the war, Arjuna's elder brother, his name is Dharmaraja, or Yudhishthira is another name. Now, in those days, people were called by names that reflected their true personality. Dharmaraja, he was called because he had very high human principles, very high principles that he lived by. Those principles, not because he read and is trying to follow them, it is him. Just like a rose naturally blossoms and has a beautiful fragrance. In Sanskritam, it's called Swabhavam. It's natural. It's not like I put a perfume on a napkin and suddenly the napkin is smelling really well, is what my spiritual mentor Dr. Sharma wants. Prabhava means because of external influence, something is happening. Swabhava means it is natural. It is who it is. It is who you are. So Dharmaraja was like that. Being righteous, having a high level of human principles that are good for the society is what he is and what he did in everything that he did, during his, reigning as a ruler and even when their kingdom was snatched from them. So the war is over, and now this man who has lived by such high principles is confused. He's feeling a sense of remorse. He's like, I killed all my, fellow human beings. I don't feel good. Why did this happen? Remember, he is now a different mentee. The previous mentee was Arjuna. The context was different, was before the war, sense of confusion whether I should do the activity or not. Now it's a different mentee, Arjuna's elder brother, who is again confused, in spite of winning the war, not sure if this was the right thing to have happened. At that time, what the same mentor Krishna does is, I know somebody who can resolve your confusion, who can answer your questions, and who can give you some excellent advice. Let me take you there. And Krishna takes him, and a lot of people say, oh, we want to listen too. So think of this as a fireside chat or a conversation that he is catalyzing. A mentor taking a mentee to a third person, a different mentor, and he goes to Bhishma, who is one of the grandfathers of the kingdom and who is lying on a bed of arrows. Now you can read up all about it, or I can explain some other time why that's the case. But here is Bhishma about to die, and very, very wise, extremely powerful as a leader, as a warrior, and as a scholar. So Krishna tells the mentee to say, why don't you ask your questions to Bhishma? And then Dharmaraja asks the questions, and again the conversation that happens after that is what is called Vishnu Sahasranamam. Now again, it's important to not get distracted by the language in which the conversation is happening, but be wise to go after the wisdom behind what is being said. Very, very important to not get distracted. So in this case, Krishna the mentor takes Dharmaraja the mentee to another mentor, Bhishma, to answer the mentee's questions and help him to provide clarity. And that again is a conversation. So when you are mentoring someone, sometimes you are able to share your wisdom directly with the mentee. So the mentee's questions are answered, addressed, they are clear, and then they're able to take the action to get to the next step. But sometimes you may want to take the mentee and open the door to a different mentor. In my book, I talk about mentors open doors, mentors resolve confusions, and all of this is so beautifully reflected in all of these ancient Indian scriptures. And so, those listening to this video, if you are a mentor, keep this in mind. Sometimes you share, sometimes you open a door so that the mentee is served with whatever they are looking for. And if you are a mentee, be on the lookout for great mentors who can share their wisdom with you, who can also open amazing doors for you. And in the end, you have the wisdom and the guidance and the decision-making power to make great decisions and to do things that are good for you, your family, your society, and to the world at large.